All right, well, cheers. Drew, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
No problem.
That's good stuff, yeah. Thank you for sitting down with me, man. This is something I've wanted to do for a while.
Let me put my phone away.
I've wanted to interview friends and people that I meet through music and everything, and I'm glad you're able to be the first guy.
Thanks, man.
So, fun fact for everyone, I've known Drew for 10 years now, right?
Long time. Yeah, actually, exactly 10 years.
Yeah, so
it'll be 10 years in August.
Yeah.
Late August. Wow.
I know, we met in high school, which is nuts. So I was a senior when you were a freshman, and we kind of just hit it off and been there ever since. So, but
there were a few drawings on the board and rubber chickens. Not being thrown by me.
It was all Kyle.
Yeah, that was definitely all Kyle. Ping pong balls to the eye.
Oh my god, that was
too bad I don't have a video for that.
I know.
That'd be a great spot to just insert it. Found it!
Oh my god. Yeah, he took a ping pong ball to the face, directly to the eye.
That fucking sucked.
And it was great. He's crying once he got hit, and he's like, "Keep filming!"
Like, ah!
It was rough.
It was.
Oh boy! So as it's ironic that we're doing this in your studio, which is in your basement.
Well,
it's more professional than most things.
Do we want to take a look and
yeah,
pan it?
Yeah. So we'll cut to a right here. So while he's got his music playing in the background, we got Drew's setup here. Got his some of his guitars, 3 of his guitars. He's got a nice just pedal board. Here's his setup with the 3 monitors, technically, if you count the laptop with Pro Tools. He's got a nice speaker system. He's also got the keys and everything. He's got a drum set over there. This guy's so professional. All right.
And we're back.
So yeah, so now I have a thing. All right. So now I don't know if we've really talked about it. The people that don't listen to the show, but you are a musician. You've been making music for a long time now.
Right. I'd say since making music, I've been writing the lyrics since I was about 8 years old.
Okay.
And playing guitar since 7th grade, I think.
There you go.
Yeah, so I met you in 9th grade.
Yeah. So
that would be 12, 13 years.
I didn't realize that I've been playing guitar longer than you have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. And
yeah,
much better than I
play
am.
every day, though. I play nearly every day.
I just got back into playing every day.
Yeah.
So
I never put it down.
Yeah, I kind of went in and out of it.
Yeah.
And I went through a couple years worth of kind of picking them up, putting them down. Yeah. But I recently got back into it. So.
I say every day, but I didn't play yesterday.
Yeah.
But you can still physically see my calluses.
Oh yeah, and mine are starting to come back.
Yeah. That's just a little fucking one.
Yeah, I know. So what do you classify your genre as that you mainly strive for?
It's strive for. I usually I want to sound as folk punk as possible, but I'm not. That's the thing is genre wise, I don't think I'm folk punk.
Right.
Because I'm not. Either I don't have enough of a political lean in my lyrics, or I'm just not. I'm a little too goofy to be a punk, I think.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just one of those things that I love punk rock and I love folk punk. It's my favorite genre. AJJ, in my heart forever. They're still alive.
Yeah.
I should probably point that out. But
considering that's the shirt you're wearing.
Oh yeah, hey, that wasn't even planned. That's really funny. AJJ School for Ghost Children. Never mind. Off the rails immediately. But yeah, no, I think generally speaking, I lean more towards an indie pop, indie folk kind of vibe.
Right. So, and you produce all your own stuff, which is, a lot of people do.
Well, so production-wise, my first album, I was self-produced entirely. Then when I went up to college in 2014, that album, Wander Off, and the next album, The Common Lunatic, which came out in 2015, I think. Wander Off came out in 2015, Common Lunatic came out in 2016. And those two albums, a friend of mine, Dylan Durham, produced. Who Dylan I consider a much better producer than I. But there's something about having like full control over your stuff.
Right.
It just gives you a different sound, you know. Then Wander Off or not Wander Off. Then When I Get There and this upcoming album, which will be called Feet to Stand On.
Yep.
Which I don't know if I've announced that yet, but whatever. But I can announce it here. Those albums, I went back to producing myself.
Right.
And yeah.
Now you've put, besides the Forever Fool thing, which is the band that you're currently in, you've released what, 2 or 3 solo project albums as well?
You mean besides Forever Fool?
Yeah, besides Forever Fool, you have what, 2 or 3 just solo project albums that are just Drew Cathcart.
So the 2 Drew Cathcart albums, which are included under the Forever Fool umbrella, they're still stuff I play. Forever Fool's kind of weird. So I write all the songs, and then my friends are what make it Forever Fool, like the people who I get to perform, you know. The Drew Cathcart album. So for Pen and Paper, which was the first album, I recorded every instrument except for one keyboard track.
Right.
And then Wander Off, I did most of the instruments besides like a few drum tracks and some bass. And then when I got in, and then I kind of like changed my identities a little bit into like Forever Fool, because it just, I don't know, I wanted to distance myself from Pen and Paper because I had just changed musically, I think.
Right.
And I don't know, I think it worked out.
I mean, that makes sense. So you did, well, speaking of all the production stuff, you did go to college for that, right?
Yeah, but I didn't finish though.
Right, but you still started and you learned the craft. First off, where did you go?
I went to Northern Vermont University, which is what it's called now, Linden.
Okay.
At the time I went, it was called Linden State College.
Yeah.
It's up in a tiny town called Lindenville, Vermont, which is way up north in Vermont. You know, it's by Burke Mountain. It's about 4.5 hours north of here.
Oh, okay. So, what made you want to do production and learn that craft?
Well, it's funny because when I first went there, I wanted to be more of like an artist manager. And then I got in the studio for the first time, and like I would sit in on people's sessions and just learn and do what I could to like understand, like, okay, so this does that, and you know, I should cut instead of boost when EQing more often than not.
Right.
And try to use plugins sparsely unless it really needs them. Stuff like that.
Right.
And slowly but surely I went from, my interest changed from being like 100% like artist management and music self-promotion to like, it started to have that lean towards like, you know, recording music's really fun.
Right.
And the thing about recording music, you know, and especially recording your own music, is it's stressful, but generally speaking in a fun way.
Right.
You know, I'll often, you know, there are a few vocal tracks on this album I'm recording right now that like I spent probably 3 hours on one line, because I think sometimes you got to be a perfectionist.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to get the right take, but then there are other moments, like I think I recorded, usually the guitar for me, I don't spend very long on it, the rhythm guitar.
Right.
But yeah, no, there are just moments that like some points take longer than others, I guess is my point.
Oh, of course. And I mean, I feel like that's got to be something you deal with all the time, especially considering you not only record yourself, but you record other bands and other artists as well.
Well,
right?
so recording yourself is the easy part, I think, because you know your own limits most of the time.
Do you find yourself critical of your own work as opposed to everyone else's?
Well,
I think overly critical, I guess.
I'm way more critical of myself, I think, than anyone else. But I think you know, from a production standpoint, you got to be critical of everyone's. You got to be critical of everything you're working on, because you got to think, is this really the right? Is this really the right sound for, this particular song, or even this particular part of this song?
Right.
And if it's not, you got to stop and ask yourself, well, what could be, and what can I do to make that happen?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, recording other people, is that, once you started doing it yourself, was that something that just happened to pop up? Or did you want to pursue it more?
So the first time I recorded someone else was my friend Stephanie Lucier, who I
Shout
play.
out to Steph.
Yep, I play in a band with called Victim or Victor.
We've had her on our radio show a couple times.
Yeah, and Victim or Victor is Steph's equivalent of Forever Fool.
Yeah.
Where she writes all the music, and she has a certain set of musicians who she trusts to help her with it, and that is
including yourself.
Yeah, including myself. I play lead guitar and harmonies.
So you've got a whole Nine Inch Nails feel about yourself. You think Nine Inch Nails, Panic at the Disco, those are really like.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm not as good as.
No, but like that whole vibe, like Trent Reznor is
like
Nine Inch Nails.
The very DIY,
yeah.
DIY and like, DIY and very independent. I think it's important to maintain independence,
right?
Depending on your project,
right?
So with Forever Fool, that's kind of like my baby.
Yeah.
So I kind of tend to, if I think something doesn't sound right on a song, I have the final say, like, okay, this doesn't make it on the song.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's frustrating to some people. I remember Avery, who played bass on When I Get There, and also this upcoming album, Feet to Stand On. Avery's one of the most talented, if not the most talented musicians I've ever played with.
Yeah.
And there was a part in a song called "Beam Me Up, Scotty."
Yep.
One of their bass lines, and it was just a little, for me personally, it was a little too wordy. Like it had it kind of went on its own tangent, and it was cool. On its own, it was really cool. But as soon as you put it into the mix, it was distracting.
Absolutely.
And it was hard to say, it's hard to be that guy sometimes that's like, I think we should try it simpler, right. Especially when the part is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how did you, speaking of Avery and your whole crew, how did you go from doing your self-titled, self-labeled solo project stuff to Forever Fool, and then linked up with the squad you have now?
Right. So you mean I also forgot to answer your question.
Gabe, Avery, how?
Well,
I
forgot to answer your question previously of how I started the.
Yeah, well, we could circle back to that.
Okay. So the original Forever Fool idea was that it was just going to be me and a guitar, and I would have musicians who were friends record on the album.
Right.
When I toured as Forever Fool.
I do want to talk about your tour as well. So
yeah.
But
So when I toured as Forever Fool, it was, I think the first one was 7 shows in 8 days, and the next one was 9 shows in 10 days.
Right.
And it was just me in the van. Well, in the Subaru Forester.
Shout out to the Drew Brew.
Rest in peace, Drew Brew. I missed that car.
Well, sometimes you do good. Sometimes you
hit a telephone
avoid
pole.
a car and hit a telephone pole.
Story for another day.
They can't all be winners, man.
No. One good deed deserves another, I suppose.
Absolutely.
But I guess to my point, that was the original concept for Forever Fool, was that it was full band albums with a solo performance. And those were kind of the two sides. And then Avery had mentioned to me that they wanted to play bass on a show. I think I was playing as a fundraiser for the Connecticut Green Party. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of just spun off from there. We played that fundraiser, and then we opened up for Llama Tsunami at the German Club.
I was at that
That
show.
was the first show you ever.
That was my first one. I went to that with our buddy Dan.
Yep. And that was a great time. And then
The bag.
and then
pipes.
we and then
The
and then we kind of got to thinking, well, why don't we keep doing this? This is fun. Gabe, switched from playing drums to being our multi-instrumentalist. He played.
Yeah, he very much so is very multi-instrumental.
Yeah, well, so in the time he was with us, he played fiddle, he played penny whistle, he played flute, he played electric mandolin, he played acoustic mandolin, he played banjo-lele on some stuff, and at one point keys. It was like a little ridiculous.
What's the story behind the bagpipes at the German Club?
Well, it's funny you say that because Baird at the time was our fill-in guy because we couldn't find a drummer, so Gabe had to play drums.
Yeah.
And Baird, who's a great musician himself, wanted to try a song with bagpipes, like at the end of practice, and it just so happened the song "Red and Blue" was in the key that bagpipes are in, key of D, or his bagpipes, anyways. And so we tried out at practice. It worked surprisingly well at practice, and then we decided to try it out with that. We've never redone that with bagpipes since, but maybe at some point, there might be a revisit to old Red and Blue. But I think that song's asleep for a while until I decide it's time to bring it back.
There you go. And I feel like anyone that was at that show, like that seemed like such a cool moment to be a part of. Like I don't know if you guys really thought about that. If that's the fact that that's a whole thing that you've never done since and you've only done it once. If that's like a little memory that sticks out in your head and just some of the old.
That was fun. Yeah.
So, and then I know Jake's the one that played drums regularly.
Yeah, Jake since high school has been my go-to drummer. Jake, he was a freshman when I was a senior. He played in one of my first bands called Inspired Alibi. We played the Extravaganza and the Spectacular at Eastline High School my senior year. And then, and then there was kind of a spot where I was up at college. It wasn't really practical to have Jake record on my stuff. But we still gigged over the summer. We still played together. I kept showing him new songs. And Jake is a phenomenal drummer. It's ridiculous how good he is sometimes. This past album, Feet to Stand On, this upcoming one, Jake did, and this is going to sound like I'm kidding, but I'm not. Jake did all 9 of the 10 drum tracks. So Marcus played one of the drum tracks, but Jake did the other 9 in, I want to say, 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Were they all first takes?
They were so what we did. So he had never heard most of the songs on this before.
So kind of just.
The first time he played with the song to get a vibe for it, and then the second time he played through it, he almost always nailed it. And if he didn't nail it, we'd get a third and a fourth take.
So wow! So he did most of them in 2 takes.
Yeah,
That's
did most of them in 2 takes. In the
crazy.
first take, it was like learning the song.
That's nuts.
Yeah, wicked good drummer. Wicked good friend. He plays up in Ithaca, New York right now, going to school with a band called Quail, and they're a fantastic group of musicians.
And we played their song.
We played Blue Sky.
We will definitely talk about our radio show in a little bit, and we'll talk about the new lineup as well. But tell me a little bit about the tour that you went on, because I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, so there were 2 tours I went on break at school. There was one called, the first one I went on, I think it was called the Autumn Evenings Tour. And it's where I got the design for my t-shirt.
The one that I have?
Yeah. And so that was a 8-day tour of the Northeast, I think, if I'm remembering this correctly.
That's not bad.
And it was let's see if I can remember the shows. It was started in Lyndonville, then I went to UMass Amherst, where I did a house show, I think, or something, or busked or something, and then I played, went down to. Then I went down, played a show in Old Lyme, did a show in Rhode Island, did a show in Rehoboth, Mass. And then, if I'm remembering correctly, and then I played New York City and Burlington.
Oh, okay.
Oh, whoops.
Nice.
Party foul.
Party foul.
Yeah.
And that was a total of 8 days?
That was 8 days, 7 shows.
So, with all that, what's the whole financial situation with something like that? Especially when you're doing it by yourself.
Usually your first few tours, you don't expect to make a profit.
Right.
I got very lucky. I was selling enough merch where I was making a slight profit. You know, my budget for the tour, between food and gas, was something like $200, $300. And I think I made $350. So
okay.
$50 profit.
That's not bad.
Well, for your first tour, it's pretty good. Because you can't expect to be making a profit, you know, first few times you go out on the road. You kind of just got to do it to establish relationships and grow your fan base. So first, I'd say 4 tours.
Yeah.
Now, I only ever did 2 tours. The other tour I did was the Common Lunatic Tour. And it was a 10-day tour.
Right.
Same general area, except I started in Lyndonville, then I went to Burlington, then I went to New York City, and then I kind of circled back around until I got to Old Lyme.
Would you play there, Nightingales?
Yeah, I played Nightingales there
I'll
at the
have
time.
to face the camera just a little more, so we can at least...
Yeah, sorry.
But, 7 shows in 8 days, did you go under the Forever Fool banner, or was that just Drew Cathcart?
I was under the Forever Fool banner.
And were you by yourself?
Yes.
Alright, that makes sense. The second tour, was that
Same
just
thing.
you as
Same
well?
Thing.
With the Forever
Same
Fool?
thing.
Did you do the exact same loop, or did you add more shows?
I added more shows. So I also picked up a show in Plainville, Massachusetts, at a place called An Unlikely Story, which is a very cool little book shop and tea shop. I played there with my friend Liz from Dying Below Zero, and Liz is a wonderful musician, great singer, great writer. That was a lot of fun.
There you go. Have you played at any of these venues since?
A few of them. So
obviously not counting like the ones in Connecticut or like
yeah.
Anywhere
so
else?
Few. I played. I think I played one other show in Rehoboth since then, and then I've played at Lyndonville since then and Burlington since then. But not very often. Usually that's like a once a year trip.
You should go up there for a festival, right?
Well, no. So I didn't play the festival up there, but I went up to. There's a venue up that way called Parker Pie.
Okay.
It's like a local spot for the kids at Linden State, and I left school early. Sorry, I left school early, and I think midway through my junior year, I decided to leave school. It wasn't for me. And I went, I did that tour, and on break I played Parker Pie, which, you know, is a local spot with college kids, and then I played there again, what would have been my senior year. You know, it was kind of like the last year I would have known people there.
Oh, that seems like
But I'd love to get back up there, you know.
Of course.
Vermont is a beautiful place. I loved the town of Lyndonville. I miss those guys a lot, actually. They were great friends up there.
So with that, did you meet any sort of other artists up there that you still keep in contact with?
Oh yeah. Well, most of them, like I met. I know. At Lyndonville and at Burlington, you know, I still keep in touch with a few of my friends' bands. I met the Quins not on my tour, but like. At Lyndonville, our friends the Quins, and I'd love to do a show with them at some point.
Those guys are great.
Yeah,
we had them on a special like live set edition of the radio show, and then
that was a lot of fun.
Came back here and hung out and drank some beers and ate some food.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was a good day.
Yeah.
So. What was your time like up in Lyndonville? Like with school wise, what was the vibe there?
Cold.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
Was there a lot of music?
There was actually. There was a bunch of diversity actually in the music scene. There was like one of every kind of band, it seemed like. There were a couple of rappers who kind of would play every once in a while. They played in this group called Immortal Combat.
That's a great name.
Yeah. And spelled exactly how you think it is. And then there was the Bonnets and the Mangroves, who were like kind of like two of the big bands like when I went to school.
Yeah.
And then before that, you had Red Tin Box, who broke up my senior year because they were all graduating. Those guys were like my fucking heroes. I don't know if I can swear.
Yeah,
but okay.
It's YouTube. You're good.
Cool. Though I love, my buddy Drew Faley played bass. Michael Mon, he played guitar and banjo lately. Tom Shahan on drums, and my buddy Garrett wrote the songs. And there's some really good songs that they had written and played, and it was a very nice time. And also, my buddy Rye McDonald, who at the time played in a band called Suncooked, now plays in a band called Co-Pilot with my other friend Maggie, and they're phenomenal, dude. I can't even put into words like how good these guys are. They're kind of like the heroes up there.
There you go. So you decided not to go back your senior year, brought your roots back here.
Yeah.
What was your musical journey like once you got back here? Did it change how you did things? Did you link up with old people?
Yeah. So I decided once I was back here, I needed more than just myself. So I linked up with Avery, and I linked up with Gabe, and that was around the time the original the old consistent lineup of Forever Fool started. Because we did that show with Lom Tsunami, and then
was that your first show?
That was our first show. That was our first show with the three of us. I think our first show with all four of us was with at Mystic Eats, where I ripped my pants. That's a funny story as well.
Well, we got time. You want to tell it?
Literally stepped up. So the stage is about yay high. I don't know, you can't see, but it's about arm of the chair height, maybe a little shorter. So it's a good lunge to get up there. There were no steps. Oh, so turn.
Yeah, just a little more. Like you could at least face.
So there was no steps.
Right.
So I took one step up on the stage, and I just hear it ripped from the left side of my crotch to my right knee.
Ooh.
And thankfully Avery was wearing a scarf that day.
Yeah.
And thankfully we had some duct tape. So I just covered myself with that scarf. It was quite the fashion statement.
That's insane.
It looked like a tourniquet. Plaid tourniquet.
Talk about rock and roll.
Mm-hmm. Show must go on, man.
Go on.
Show must go on.
You are pretty well known in the area for the show must go on situations.
Well, I mean, you saw last Tuesday where I broke an A string and ripped it out of my guitar. It was interfering with the notes.
You're pretty well known in the area for breaking strings on stage and continuing to play the song.
Yeah.
And then you'll play the rest of the set like that.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do.
Exactly.
Thankfully, Danny Fleet lets you use his guitar.
Yeah. And generally, generally speaking, that's why I bought a second guitar last summer or 2 summers ago. And that was...
now you have, 4 or 5 guitars?
Well, I have more. Well, that I use, probably, I guess 5 now with the Dano.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Dano, that thing is kind of dope.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about when I get that. But that was a very good decision on my part. It's now I can break a string and I don't have to play the rest of the set with a broken string.
You can just swap out guitars.
Because I noticed the other day, A string, kind of a vital part to my songs.
Yeah.
That's where most of the bass notes are.
Exactly. It was quite the scene when you heard it break and you saw him just go, oh shit. And then we're like, oh, and he rips it out of the guitar.
With my left hand.
I was like, that is the most gangster thing I've ever seen on stage.
I know.
So, when you linked up with the guys, was that when you made the decision to start recording the albums with them included?
That came later. So I didn't even know I was going to record another album until, because we played gigs that first summer and fall.
Right.
We probably played, we probably played a year's worth of gigs
Just to get acquainted with each other?
Well, yeah, and that was a really smart decision, too. But we played a year's worth of gigs before we even really thought about recording the album.
Yeah.
And then the following summer, I had slowly gotten back into Pro Tools because I had been so used to going to someone else to record. And I'm like, wait, I have Pro Tools. I can get back into this. This is something I used to do, and I got the idea like I kind of want to go back to my roots as being completely independent.
Yeah.
And,
what went into that decision to start going back to others? Like, I know at one point you were having someone else do your recording.
Yeah.
What was that? What led you to that decision to start doing your own stuff again? To start recording, start producing, editing.
I think a big chunk of it was necessity of like time. But I think secretly, I loved the recordings that I got from Dylan.
Right.
But I think I could have done better with at least the performances.
Yeah.
If I had like recorded stuff on my own time, and like not had time constraints. And I think the nice thing about recording yourself, especially when you're not signed to a label, you don't have any time constraints unless you put them on yourself.
Not only that, but you don't have to pay for it. It's
right.
It's on your time, your money.
Well, you have to pay for the equipment.
Well, of course, but
yeah.
Everything else, yeah, like you don't have to pay for studio time.
Right.
You don't have to pay the gas to get there.
Right.
All that stuff.
Right. But that was a big factor. Was like, I think the turning point for me was I recorded a demo of "Take on Me." Of all things,
which I've heard, and it's a solid cover.
I recorded, I did a demo of "Take on Me," and then I did an animation. Or no, it wasn't. And then that kind of led to this idea of, and this was still while I was up at school, and then I recorded an EP, the River Fool EP on my own, and that was an EP with just 4 strings, by the way.
Did you do that on purpose? Or?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
But it's funny because it came out of a bad situation. So I broke both the D and the G string at once during one of my sets, mid-song.
How?
Mid-first song, like this.
I've never broken anything besides a B or an E string.
Broke the D and the G, first song of the set. And thankfully it was a solo gig, so I decided, all right, well, I'm going to try this new material out that's kind of spacious anyways. And it worked really well. So I did a 30-minute set like that, and that's kind of where I got the concept for that EP. And then when I recorded that on my own over the summer, and then I got the idea, I can get better at this. I can kind of do this on my own if I want. And it was kind of nice, which don't get me wrong, like recording with Dylan was an incredible experience, and he brought something else to the table that I can't bring.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, like getting a second opinion on anything is alone like one of the most valuable things you can have.
Yeah, it's something that's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and not to mention, the stuff Dylan can do that I can't do. Dylan's a much more technical and better, editor, and I think smarter with certain, decisions as far as like mixing. So I stopped focusing on the editing though, and I started focusing on the performances.
Right.
Which kind of led to that idea of, and I know it's a long-winded thing, and I'm getting there.
No, we got time, man.
But once I got to the performances, once I got a good performance, I got this idea like, if I get a good performance, there's very little I need to do to make it sound good.
Right.
The basics are already there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I got the idea to do a 4th album. But I didn't want to do it with just myself, because I was already playing gigs with, Gabe and Avery and Jake.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is a great time to try this. There was a week in April and a week in June, I think, that everyone had left, and I decided that'd be a good time to record, most of the album.
Right.
So in March before that, I recorded a lot of the guitar and a good chunk of the vocals, and what I could. And then I had Jake come in for that week in April, and we banged out the drums in like 2 days, I think. And then I thought, well, this still needs more, so I brought in Avery and Gabe, and they did their parts in that other week, and it just kind of completed the sound I've been looking for a long time.
And that was the first time you recorded an album full
band, yeah. That was the first entirely full band album. Because there were songs on other albums that were full band, but they were not like, I don't know. The whole album wasn't like that.
Right.
Whereas When I Get There was the first album that I did really that the entire album pretty much was like everybody. And that kind of solidified that sound to me.
Do you feel like that's the best album you put out because of all the work that went into it and all the extra pieces of the puzzle? Instead of it just being you had everyone else in?
I think so far, yeah.
Obviously you're working on your fifth album right now.
I think Feet to Stand On is going to be my best album.
Definitely want to
talk
about
that. Obviously I'm going to say that because it's the new album.
Exactly.
But like I really and it's one of those things, you get better the more you do it. And each time I go in to record something, I get a little bit better.
Yeah.
If you listen back to Pen and Paper, my voice is a little nasally, and like my guitar playing's not very good.
You're still honing your craft,
exactly.
not only guitar-wise, but vocally.
Exactly.
And as someone who sings personally, I've learned that I didn't find my voice until I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I didn't really hone my craft until probably a couple years ago.
Well, and like same here, and I'm still honing my craft, But I think the
mind if I steal some more? By the way?
Sure.
You like this? This is how we conduct the interview with as true fashion of friends.
Yeah.
Just going to town, some bottle of whiskey, and having a good time. But continue.
I think. What was your question? I got distracted.
Jesus.
Yeah, right.
I did too. Oh my God, what was my question?
It was something about. I don't fucking know.
What do you? Oh God, what the hell was it?
I can wait.
Brain. Either way, you know what? Why don't we just move on to the next part of it then? Yeah. We'll circle back to it eventually.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you get us going. So we'll start talking, and then
and then none of the questions.
Yeah, the questions will never get answered.
We'll just be chatting.
Yeah. So, do you feel like When I Get There is the best album because of everything being fully together?
I think as of right now, I think it's the only album out right now, I think, that captures what I envisioned from the start with Forever Fool.
Okay.
So in that sense, I think it's the best album.
Right. And we'll talk about toward the end your new album that's coming out, which I like that you've already got a name for it. And I've heard little bits of it.
Yeah, and my buddy Ryan just finished the art for it. So I know now you've changed. We might as well talk about it now because now I'm more interested in talking about the new album. I know you've changed because Gabe and Avery and Jake they're all busy doing their own things, and you've kind of got a new lineup now. Well,
with live lineup.
It's more like the original way of like doing it.
You're doing it your own.
Well, so like
people.
It's like back when I first started, when I recorded Wander Off.
That's way watered down now.
Oh yeah. When I recorded Wander Off, I did the same thing where like I'd get together musicians when I could.
Right.
And as long as they knew the songs and like I could like teach it to them and like they'd be willing to play, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And but otherwise it's just me. I think right now it's kind of that similar circumstance. I would love to have Noah, Marcus, and Bella, who are the current lineup, be the permanent members. While especially while Avery is like away and Jake is away. But don't get me wrong, those guys always have a special place in my heart.
Oh, of course.
And they're always,
that's the
and not to be like that guy who's like picks favorites, but like especially Avery and Jake, you know, they'll always be like the members to me.
Oh, of course. But yeah, that's who you really started becoming a full band with, so it makes sense. So for those that don't know the area, so he's talking about Marcus DiPolina and Bella, who we do the radio show with, and then Noah Feldman, who's probably one of the most talented people I've ever met.
Yeah.
The guy can play just about anything.
Pretty much, yeah. And he can write better than I can, which is what makes me think he probably won't want to do it because he's already he's busy. He's a busy
hell,
guy,
especially with Fleet and
and
the
the
Flood.
Yeah. And not to mention his duos and like all his gigs.
We
and
saw
college.
We saw him outside of Brick and Basil.
Yeah.
You dragged me along. You didn't drag me along to that. That was a day after a show, and you're like, let's go do that. And that was a fun night.
Yeah.
But I mean, it looks like you've really got this Forever Fool thing going on the right track to where you want it to be.
Yeah.
How does that feel for you, knowing where you started to where you're at now?
It feels really good. You know, it's always nice to look back. Every once in a while, I'll put on, you know, a song from Pen and Paper, and I'll listen to it. And then I'll listen to one of my most recent recordings, and I'll be like, I've come a long way. And not to toot my own horn, but that's like, that means everything.
Well, it's a big thing.
It's a big thing, you know? And like, I think that's the whole point of, you know, not just being a musician, but being a person, is you always want to improve. And you always want to get better, and you always want to, you know, set the bar just a little bit higher than the last time. And then, once you've set the bar enough times, you know, the bar is currently here, and then your first one's all the way down here, you can look back and go, man, I came a long way.
Absolutely.
And that's really what, you know, I think that's what makes all the difference.
Well, and your writing is so...
I wouldn't go that far.
It's so... No, it's... you are like the most modest person in the world, and I constantly praise you on your songwriting and your ability to not only hone in a song on its whole, but performances. It's spectacular. How does the songwriting process work for you?
It varies from song to song. You know, there are songs that like a song like you know, Summer Days was a poem. It's the first song I ever wrote. It was a poem I wrote when my grandmother passed.
Right.
And then when I picked up guitar, I wrote, you know, that riff, and it just became, you know, and that's probably still to this day one of my favorite songs I've ever written.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah, well, and it's like, because it means a lot to me.
Absolutely.
You know, it may not be like the best song I've written musically, or like, you know, lyrically I think it's pretty good compared to some of the stuff I've done, but like I think musically, you know, it's not the best song I've written for sure, but it's one of the ones that mean the most to me.
Absolutely. Do you draw from real life experiences? Is that like your main motivation to writing?
Most of the time. Every once in a while, I'll see something, or hear a phrase. I don't know. Most of the time it's from real life experience. Like "Disembark" is a song I wrote about my three best friends. You know, and in the song they're called the captain, the helmsman, and the first mate, and you know, it's all about like them moving on and to their own lives essentially, and it's tough, but then there are songs like a song like Fruit Fly, same album, but that I literally wrote about a fruit fly, and then I saw a fruit fly. It was before, I think it was actually one of the first gigs I did with Avery. I was waiting around because I got there to the gig really early, so I pulled out my guitar and I decided to just play a little, you know. In fact, can I?
Yeah, man, go for it. Cool. Honestly, that's like one of my biggest things with jazz picks. I love them, but dude, I just start cranking.
Yeah, so I was just kind of, I knew I write a lot of songs in the G. So to be creative, I went a fourth away from that to the C, And I just kind of started writing this, like, playing this little... And then I would always get to the... And every fucking time, a fruit fly would land on my knuckle.
That's ironic.
And so I started singing this, like this, I started... You know, I'd be like, fuck. And then eventually I just, like, it came to me kind of like that. It was like, oh, fruit fly, go away, you're not wanted here today. Find another garbage trail. And then I kind of wrote the first verse like that. And then once you have that, like, rhythm of, like, that first little bit, the rest should flow pretty easy.
Right.
And oftentimes if it doesn't, it's not gonna flow.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, that, of course you can, like, you can force a song out. Like, there are songs, like songs that, like, need to happen, you know?
Yeah.
There's a song I wrote called, Two French Words. And the original riff, the original version of that song is very, like, melancholy, but now it's like... Now it's very dancey, but how it started was I was really bummed that there was this girl from Australia, and she was really cool. Or no, not Australia, different girl. Sorry, that sounds
all of the girls.
That sounds terrible. But there was a girl from, I think she was from the UK, and so she was only here for a little bit, and it was right before I went to college.
Right.
So there was a little thing going on, and I was really bummed that, like, oh, this is, like, the one girl I've ever been able to talk to. You know, typical, like, early teenage 17-year-old shit.
Yeah.
But I wrote this, like, not that that's not valid, but, like, I had this riff that was like... And then I had that riff. I just played that riff for about 4 times through, and then I kind of got this idea. And you're the only French I know. I got into the car and, you know?
Yeah.
And it kind of became this metaphor for something that needed to happen. It's basically, the whole song's about acknowledging that this isn't a healthy thing to be worrying about. You know, it's something that's I have no control over.
Right.
And that's kind of... So there are songs like that that need to come out of you. And once they come out of you, you're like, oh, that's what I was upset about, really?
And then it kind of,
and then it kind of goes away, yeah.
To what it is now, and it's totally like a dancey, jazzy song. Yeah, and it flows really well, which is one thing I really like about a lot of your music.
Thanks, man.
So, circling back to what I had asked you earlier, now we've already talked about your recording of yourself and your own music and where you're heading with that now.
Right.
What really led you to start reaching out to your friends that are looking to record music and say, hey, you know what? I can record you, I can mix for you, I can take care of all that for you. Where did you land on that?
It was kind of a whim. So Steph Lucier, as I mentioned earlier, was someone I met at an open mic at Strange Brew, and she was a regular there like I was, and she had these great songs that she wrote, for Victim or Victor, and she, like, gave me her CD of her previous album, or her previous EP called Forever Now, and I loved it. You know,
which, by the way, is great. If you guys know
yeah.
Steph and you haven't listened to it, check it out. It's great.
Yeah, and it's a great EP. You know, she did her vocal performances, especially, were wonderful and, like, very full. But I kind of do this thing where I do that.
Yeah, we're both in swivel chairs.
Yeah. So, but then I got this idea after an open mic. I'm like, someone reached out to me because they heard like one of the songs I recorded. They're like, "You recorded that?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." They're like, "You should record other people." So I got this kind of idea, like, I should start with a friend.
Oh, of course.
And so I asked Steph, hey, are you ever planning on recording, another Victim or Victor album? You've got the songs for it. She's like, well, yeah, actually, money's an issue. And in my head, I'm like, that's so true. That's something that, like, I really always never liked about the music industry is that
It's expensive.
Everything's incredibly expensive. And then, especially with an artist, an artist makes not a ton of money usually from the actual art.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's one of those things where, to me, it seems unethical to charge, an artist like $300 a day or for a studio session.
It seems outrageous. Like it feels like there's so much.
It's understandable why they do it.
You gotta make money. But
well, you gotta make money, and you gotta pay for the gear. You're in the studio, and I understand it, but it's just like, I said it like impromptu. I said, I'll record it for $50, and she's like, deal. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, because you're not really paying for anything that you haven't already paid for your situation.
Exactly. So it's like one of those things where, so we started. She showed me all the songs. We did rough little demos of them, and then we decided to, go ahead with the full album. And some of them were fully acoustic.
Yeah.
There were some that had minimal instrumentation, like Stunted, which is probably my favorite recording on that album. It's very, it's very delicate, beautiful piece by Steph, and her vocal performance makes the whole thing.
Absolutely.
But we did that. We recorded that for probably about 3 months of just when we could. Then she released it, and people seemed to like it, and which was shocking to me. Not that people liked her music, but that people thought my recording was okay.
Yeah.
Do you
do all the mastering yourself?
For that I didn't do the mastering. That I did all the mixing.
Do you do it for your own albums? Do you do all your own mastering?
I do the mixing and mastering for my album, which you really shouldn't do. You should really have someone else.
Someone else do the mastering.
You should have someone else master anything.
Yeah.
Because because they're so similar. The final mix and the final master.
But not only that, you're going to like how it sounds.
Exactly.
And maybe someone else is going to be like, all right, well, maybe this.
Well, so the mixing, that's mixing.
Yeah.
But the master is one of those things. It's supposed to be like the mix, but slightly better.
Right.
It's just supposed to bring out every instrument just a little bit more or a little bit less, depending on But yeah, for all the Forever Fool stuff, I mixed and mastered. For my friend Chris Gregor's EP, I mixed and mastered. For the Black North stuff, I mixed and mastered.
We're playing their song next week.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
So, a couple of years ago,
yeah,
you approached me.
Yes.
With this idea of a radio show.
Yeah.
And
you shot it down.
I did, but I ended up accepting it, and for those of you that listen, almost 2 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
Where did that idea come from?
So Dave had approached me.
Shout out to Dave Williams and the whole crew at ICRV in Ivyton.
Dave approached me about, ICRV at the time was very focused on, local events, make local matter,
Shout out our tagline.
Yeah.
That I hit harder than the station owner.
Oh, wow. All right.
Dave and I are going to fight about that next week.
Yeah, Dave is going to let you know. So we, it's very focused on local events, local artists, local culture, but they didn't really have any shows for the younger crowd. And so Dave had approached me. I had been on ICRV a couple times as a guest for the Nightingale Showcase. Can I drop a pic?
Yeah, mine are scattered across my whole house.
Yeah, but and mentioned that basically. He said, well, so we don't have a ton for your demographic, and it feels kind of unhonest for me to host that. That's kind of his philosophy.
It's fair.
It's his philosophy, and I'm like, Dave, you're a much better and more confident person than me. Are you sure you want to ask me to do this? And so Dave said, yes, I'm sure. And I said, okay, well, I got to find a couple co-hosts then. And so I asked, the first person that popped into my head was the most confident person I know. This guy right here, Chris
man.
Brager.
Thank you. That
or
means
Chris
a lot.
Branch.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not Gregor.
Yeah, Chris Branch.
Thank you, man. That means
Sorry,
a lot.
you're the most confident person I know.
Thank you.
And
I did shoot it down. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah,
At first, I shot it down.
Yeah. Well, so, you said, you had said, I don't know if I can swing that with work.
Yeah.
And which I was like, all right, that's fair. And I'm like, well, fuck, now who am I
and
gonna
then
get?
next day, I called you back and said, fuck it, let's do this.
Yeah.
And,
and then
here we are
the
2 years later.
First show didn't go great.
It went bad.
It went very bad.
The first show went
went terrible. But thankfully, Dave, let us know what we did wrong, and he's like, but here's what you can do next time. I think that's the biggest thing with Dave, is like he'll always let you know how you can do better.
Dave gave us
and that's huge
opportunity to not only redeem ourselves, but to teach not only just get better, but to teach us the right way to get better and the right path to go down. And I can speak. I can speak for myself and everyone that's the best thing that could have happened to us for sure.
For sure.
So it really propelled us into the right direction for what the show needed.
Well, and we just had a great show with Swabski in that one.
We
Not
did.
to date this, but
no, yeah, exactly. No, we're recording this now after on the 14th after our show with Swabski. So if you guys haven't heard that, man, the guy's a legend.
Yeah.
It
should be on the archives.
It should be on the archives right now if you're watching.
By the time this is
by the time I post, it's starting to be on the archive.
Yeah.
So go check it out. But yeah, man, I know after we had Sophie for the first show, and obviously she's one of the busiest people I've ever heard at her age. It's crazy. And then we moved on to the Noah Feldman show, and something big changed. We really planned it out, and we figured out how to do it.
Yeah, that's right. That was our second show, wasn't it?
That was a big one.
Yeah.
That was
our first.
That was our first real show between us to know what we were doing.
Yeah.
What do you think really helped us to not only redeem ourselves from the first show, but what do you think helped us propel into the right direction between us?
I think initial failure. I think failure's as they say, failure is the greatest teacher.
We got thrown to the wolves.
Well, and to be fair, we had time to write something out, but neither of us ever hosted a radio show before.
No, and I came from podcasting.
And we didn't really know what we were supposed to talk about. It was all live. There was no editing, so we kind of just winged it, and it went poorly.
And I came from podcasting, so for me, podcasting is totally different.
Yeah.
It's more of a...
you can always edit something.
Yeah, and you can free ball everything in the live radio. I think the biggest thing that didn't help us was the fact we had an hour's worth of show to cover, where we weren't ready to even be there.
Yeah. But
we covered almost
45 minutes.
Show. And then Dave threw it to a commercial and let us have it. And as harsh as it was reality for us.
Well, yeah, and it was important that he let us know.
That we weren't
as much as it was tough, but it was important he let us know, because I think that that experience of letting someone I care about down, that
absolutely.
was that made me want to be better.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it really stemmed us in the right direction. Yeah. We obviously last year added. Because 28. Did we add Marcus in 2018?
Technically, Marcus we added in 2017. We had him on in 2017.
Yeah,
and then we added him as a host. I think his first show as a host was
it January 2018?
No. It was I think it was the show. It was the show right before the 1 year anniversary.
I think that was his official. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. What do you think really helped? Right, yeah, because we obviously added him, and then obviously now we've added Bella.
Yeah.
So we've completed the crew, and the crew is great. What do you think helped us be so successful, just the two of us, to go for where we were at the worst possible show we could have ever done?
Yeah.
We were doing fantastic shows.
Yeah.
And then obviously adding to Marcus. What do you think really propelled us?
I think it was you know, personal, like, I think you and I both have something in ourselves that, like, we want to do the best we can possibly do, and we want to get better each time. And I think, like, that desire to, like, all right, that was good, but we can do better.
Absolutely.
In ourselves. Of course, you and I have a couple different ways we approach it. You know, you're very upfront about that, whereas I'm kind of like,
you're more of a held back and reserved.
Yeah, well, and like I'll acknowledge, yes, we can do better, but we also need to acknowledge that the show is still good.
Absolutely. I think what helped us was mostly it's our chemistry.
I think so too.
We've known each other for such a long time.
Well, and like we're different, but we're the right kind of different.
Absolutely, and you and I can feed off of each other to a point where it's not like
I mean, we've been recording this for a fucking hour.
We're talking for an hour about just random nonsense, and this has been a great thing.
It's like the camera's not even on.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's obviously that helps us now because shows are so effortless to us now. Yeah. Like we just pumped out.
Yeah.
We pumped out an hour. Yeah, we pumped out not only this, but this is our second show, like second interview of the day.
Yeah. Well, it's all stuff we liked, and we didn't even plan this one.
No, this has been off the cuff. Everything I've asked is just things that have popped into my head and kept going. What do you think Marcus brought to the table? That's
what I think Marcus added.
What do you think Marcus brought to the table?
I think Marcus brought, you know, obviously the obvious answer is, you know, he's been around the scene longer than either of us. Absolutely. And so he knows everyone. He is, you know, he's very important for that. And he's also a very knowledgeable speaker.
Absolutely.
Like Marcus...
He's not great with words, but once he gets the question
and he's gotten really good with words.
Good. Oh, yeah.
Well, and Marcus knows what he wants to say.
He just has a hard time saying.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Marcus has gotten so good at, like, saying the right thing and asking the right question. And Marcus is one of those people that, like, he cares about the scene, you know?
Absolutely.
He's, like, one of those guys that, like, you know, he wants to see it do good things. And I think it's important to him and just as much as it's important to us.
True, and then adding Bella was huge.
Well, yeah, and Bella adds, like, a different element entirely, because the stuff we talk about is usually 21 plus.
But not only that, Bella's so much younger than us, because we're, you know, 24 to...
23.
You know, 23 to 27.
And Bella's 19.
Bella's 19,
yeah.
So, I mean, she adds a whole different element of a layer to us.
Definitely.
How has doing the show, and we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary, how has this show helped you... not only professionally,
but personally. Like how I knew where you were going.
Yeah, you knew exactly where I was going with that.
Well, I think personally, I've gotten a lot better at subtle communication.
Absolutely.
Something that totally was very much not my strong suit, you know, especially before the show, and still isn't.
Yeah.
But I think you know the subtle cues we give each other during the show, like, you know, and it's an audio show.
Well,
so
today is for sure like the biggest thing. We haven't done a show since last month, and we've been on it.
Well, and we've communicated with each other non-verbally, or, like, even on the rare occasion we've had to use our actions, like, Bella, like, was like, I ask a question.
Yeah.
And, like, she didn't do it in the mic. Yeah. And she, like, looked at me, and I'm like, and Marcus was like, rattling off a question right then. And I waved at Marcus, I said, Bella, next. And, you know, Bella asked her question, and we communicated. And, and that's something, you know, I would have struggled with in the past, being like the facilitator.
Not only that, but Bella's only been with us for like a short amount of time.
Well, and Bella's a natural at this. She really is.
God, she fits so perfectly. That's why as soon as
she's got that sass, but also that, like, kind of like...
And it blends with what we do.
It blends with you really well, I think.
It works with what we do.
Marcus and I are kind of like we're like the sweethearts. And then you and Bella are
you guys are kind of the reserved ones, and we're more of the personality.
Yeah, I think so.
This is what are we looking at for time? All right,
1 hour and 3 minutes.
Maybe we should wrap this up soon.
Yeah, probably.
Definitely, man. You know, what are we looking at for release date for your new album? What's the new album called again?
The new album is called Feet to Stand On.
And what are we looking at for a release date?
A release date, hopefully like early July of. But potentially, it really depends, you know. Yeah. I would love to put this album out and have it ready for busking on East Lyme Day.
Yep, I did that with you, remember?
Yep.
The one day we did Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran?
Yep. Yeah.
That was dope.
That was good.
It was the first time I've ever, sang in public.
Yeah.
I'm weird like that. Like, you guys have seen me do recordings and stuff of myself, but I'm weird, like singing in front of people. But I'd love to have you link me a song, bro.
You got it, man.
Like for sure, like The Sheriff and the Outlaw. It's definitely it's like my
I'll send you-
favorite song
Good.
off of this album.
You haven't heard everything on this album yet.
I haven't, but that is
that,
right there.
That's like, well, how about this? How about I link you to that song and you can put in your little annotations.
Absolutely, put an annotation.
To
Shit,
the
I can
music
put
video,
it in
the
this
music
song.
video is up on YouTube on my channel right now.
I'll throw a link in there. Drew, brother, thank you so much,
you.
man. This has been an awesome interview.
Oh yeah.
You were the first person that I could have even thought of to want to start doing
Thanks, man.
artists with.
I'm glad I was your first.
You're so so special that you're my first. And there you go. That was the interview with my buddy Drew Cathcart. I wanted to try something new on this channel because I do interviews all the time on my radio show. I figured, well, why not do it, just me with some of my friends or other people that want to get involved with this. So if you guys like this, let me know in the comments. Let me know if this is something you want to see more, because I want to try new things this year on this channel in 2020. So thank you guys for watching. As always, you can find the link to my radio show, my Twitch channel, and my Instagram in the description below. I'm also going to link the music video to the song The Sheriff and the Outlaw in the description as well, so you guys can go check that out. Go give Drew a listen with his music. It's fantastic. It's probably my favorite song that he's got coming onto his new album. And until my next video, I will see you guys next time.